Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to offer this cautionary tale for anybody who is considering the misguided policy of requiring testing before boarding a plane domestically. I have some constituents who went to Cabo San Lucas and before returning back to the United States, pursuant to the executive order that went into place on January 26th, they took a COVID test. They were asymptomatic. They tested positive for COVID. They took another test. They took a third test after waiting some time. The family failed all three tests, and so they were told to quit testing and to wait 14 days. Now, this is a family who could be able to do that, so they decided they would wait 14 days and then try to board the flight back to the United States, but they couldn't get a doctor in Mexico to sign off on that, and the airline requested that they get a doctor to sign off on the fact that they had, pursuant to CDC guidelines, been quarantined for 14 days. So they flew to Tijuana, walked across the border to the United States, got on an airplane in San Diego, and then returned to Kentucky. Now, not every family or student or employee could afford to do that, but that's the kind of chaos that would ensue, I believe, if you had some kind of testing required for domestic flights. So I hope we don't do that, and I hope that some kind of common sense prevails in the face of this January 26th executive order. Mr. Kallio, do you have any ideas for how we could clarify that executive order or implement it so that if it's going to be in place, it could be more workable?
Well, the order that's in place is for international testing, and I know you're using it in international, but you know, we support the international testing requirement. It's a means of opening up borders and making everyone feel, including the governments, more secure. But I think the patchwork of requirements makes it very difficult and very uneven in its application. And that's one of the things we talked about earlier, and the need to try to get a handle on that so that these kind of situations do not occur.
Got it. Thank you. I hope there's not too much enthusiasm for this, quote, immunity passport as a requirement for traveling, because I think you made a good case here today that the likelihood of transmitting or receiving COVID on an airplane is less than being in a supermarket. So if you're going to make the case that you need this kind of passport for an airplane, then you're basically trying to make the case you need it everywhere, and I think that's misguided, especially since the CDC says that the vaccine doesn't necessarily imply that you won't transmit the virus or have any sort of immunity. So I hope we abandon that idea as well. Mr. Little, I want to ask you about the effect of indoor dining bans on concessionaires at airports. Our governor saw fit to ban indoor dining for a while, and yet you have passengers who are in airports. It's not like they have a choice that they could go home and eat, who couldn't eat. The solution in that case was sort of ridiculous. It was to move the chairs and tables outside of the dining area and into the common area, and then to serve the airport passengers, and then they would eat it out in the common area. Long story short, nobody was going home or not dining. Can you talk about the effect the indoor dining bans have had on the concessionaires who are already extremely in an extreme hardship due to COVID, Mr. Little, and maybe some solutions?
Yeah, thank you. Indoor dining has ban on indoor dining has been devastating. Thankfully, we're back to 25% right now. And what I think the states, for example, need to understand is that dining within an airport is different than dining outside. Indoor dining actually helps with social distancing, because what you're doing, you're actually providing an additional space within the restaurant for people to social distance. If you do not have indoor dining, but you're still selling food and beverages, then everybody actually congregates at the hold room area, and it's very hard to social distance. So because you're in an airport, you're confined, you can't go somewhere else as if you're outside. And I think the states really need to understand that the airport dining and retail is really different from outside. So it's really devastating when you actually stop indoor dining, but it also defeats the purpose, because we're not able to do social distancing, because you have taken away a substantial portion of the airport that we actually need to facilitate social distancing.
Thank you, and I hope the governors will listen to you. I think the indoor ban on dining is ridiculous to start with, and if it's meant to discourage people from congregating at restaurants, then, and the only place you can eat in an airport is at a restaurant, then it's going to discourage people from
Thank
flying.
you.
I yield back to the chairman. Thank you.